this whole box out full of good, delicious, tasty meats thrown in the frickin' trash.
The good news is that you don't have to dumpster dive for your dinner to show care for the environment and for people impacted by the climate crisis. One thing we can do instead is to start as simply as being more mindful about what it is we put or don't put on our dinner plates. Here are a few things that I've been trying to eat well for myself and the planet. Eating more plants and less meat. I love cows, always have. Those who know me well also know that I'm convinced I was a water buffalo in a past life. It's true. I know water buffaloes aren't cows, but they gotta be cousins, right? My point is, I like them a lot. But damn, they sure do contribute significantly to greenhouse gas emissions. Globally, agriculture and land use, and the production of meat, eggs, and dairy in particular, and the raising of beef even more particularly, it's the second leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. Raising cows, pigs, and chickens generates as much greenhouse gas emission as all cars, trucks, and automobiles combined. Consider this. If all the cows across the globe were their own country, they'd be the third biggest greenhouse gas emitter in the world. Why is that? It's because it requires a lot of land to raise livestock, and that need is a driving force behind deforestation across the world as forests are cleared and converted for grazing. Forests are important natural carbon captures, but when they're chopped down or cleared by fire to make room for farmland, they become carbon emitters. A 2018 study found that over 12 million acres of forest are cut down each year to clear room for industrial agriculture. That's the equivalent of more than 5 Yellowstone national parks. Extensive cattle ranching is the #1 culprit of deforestation in virtually every Amazon country. It accounts for 80% of current deforestation there. Check out this time lapse of forest loss in the Amazon rainforest in Brazil in just over a 25-year period. So what does that have to do with Americans? In 2021, Americans became the second biggest buyer of Brazilian beef. We bought more than 320 million pounds of Brazilian beef that year. And in 2022, we purchased nearly twice as much.
Beef, it's what's for dinner.
Our hamburger habit not only fuels deforestation, it requires far more food, water, and energy to raise livestock than to grow what's in our salad bowls. Global agriculture uses nearly 70% of the world's fresh water, and it requires a tremendous amount of water to produce just 1 pound of beef, as much water as it takes to produce 96 pounds of wheat, 52 pounds of sweet potato, 13 avocados. You could fill 50 bathtubs or take 135 showers for the amount of water it takes to make just 1 pound of beef. Plant-based diets, on the other hand, require 10 to 30 times less water. Adding more veggies to our plate helps reduce freshwater depletions and deforestation, good for the environment and our health. Another reason for eating less meat and more plants happens to be one of Savi's current favorite topics, burps and farts. People around the world eat a lot of beef and drink a lot of milk, and there are a lot of cows in the world to help us meet those needs. Each year, the burps and waste from a single cow produces 220 pounds of methane. That greenhouse gas that is 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide in trapping heat in the atmosphere in the first 20 years after its release. Cows are cute. Cow farts, less so.
Excuse me.
It's for all of these reasons that many researchers and advocates suggest cutting out, or at least cutting down, on meat consumption is one of the biggest and fastest ways individuals can meaningfully cut their own greenhouse gas emissions. In his recent groundbreaking book, Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming, Paul Hawken brought together over 65 researchers across the world with 128 experts in climate, sustainability, academia, and business to evaluate 80 potential climate solutions. The results shocked even the experts. And guess what? Eating more plants and less meat was the #4 most effective climate strategy overall. Listen, I was raised on barbecue ribs, and I'm still a sucker for the occasional pulled pork sandwich. For a lot of people, food is cultural and religious. It's comfort, it's taste. So I'm not suggesting it's all or nothing. Instead, I've been actively trying to fill my salad bowl a little more and make the meat portion of my dinner plate a little smaller. We've been eating vegetarian dinner at least one night a week, sometimes two.
Hey, Everybody, meat-free Monday. We're meat-free Monday. It's a fun day.
And I've made a point to order the vegetarian option more often when we go out to eat. This guy might want to consider that too.
Do you know what you want?
There's one dish that looks interesting.
Excuse me? What's hell of a steak?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. We put so much effort into this one. You won't believe what we go through just to bring it to your plate. We take a piece of land, about the size of 3 football fields. We water it with about 800,000 gallons of water to produce more than 18,000 pounds of feed and hay. All of that just to feed a single cow for your hell of a steak. As if world hunger doesn't exist. Can you believe it? So many resources. Oh, and don't get me started on the greenhouse gases.
I don't want to know the price.
I'm sure you don't. It's a heavy price to pay.
If the world's biggest beef eaters limited their consumption to the equivalent of 1.5 hamburgers per week, that's just about half of what the average person in the United States currently eats. The planet could support a population of 10 billion people without having to turn any more forests into farmland. And before you go blowing that statistic off, here's a fact. By 2050, the world's population is projected to actually hit 10 billion. And scientists anticipate we'll use up most of humanity's annual carbon budget, the amount we can emit without exceeding warming targets, just to feed everyone, unless we change the way we eat. I remember pretty clearly the first time I attempted a vegetarian dinner. Black bean burgers. Mayur ate it, and then when I asked him how it was, he said,
Yeah, I think they'll get better if you keep, making them.
So, it didn't exactly go well. You know what's better? Those food delivery boxes that give you exactly the amount of food that you need and a tasty step-by-step recipe to follow. We like Sunbasket delivery. I've heard good things about Purple Carrot too. It's not a long-term solution, but it's helped convince us that vegetarian meals can be tasty and satisfying, and it's given me more ideas, beyond black bean burgers, of course. Eating locally and seasonally.
So what do you know about seasonal food?
Well, anything, fruit, or do you mean anything on fruit, 5 a day or what?
Eat with the seasons. It's a whole thing on its very own. The idea being that plants grow in rhythm with the seasons, and that foods of the season have different energies that provide us the nourishment we need at particular times of the year. Isn't nature the coolest? Fall foods like apples and pumpkins are packed with nutrients to keep our immune system strong before the weather gets chilly. And hearty foods like sweet potatoes and collard greens give us warmth we need when it does. Leafy greens in the spring detox us after a heavy winter diet, while watermelons, tomatoes, and cucumbers cool us down in the summer. But if you're really craving a delicious, juicy watermelon, you need to buy it in season. Otherwise, what you'll end up with is a watermelon that traveled a very long distance to get to you, that you paid triple the cost for, and that tasted, well, pretty bland. And not only is it more expensive and less nutritional and tasty to grow produce outside of its natural growing season, it also requires significantly higher amounts of energy. Already in the United States, produce travels an average of 1,500 miles from the farms where they're grown to our local grocery store and onto our plates. In other words, your tomatoes make a haul the distance from Phoenix to Atlanta just to reach you. There are a lot of good reasons to eat locally. If you're eating foods grown locally, you are by default eating seasonally too. Produce grown closer to home is fresher. It's yummier and more nutritional. Buying seasonal produce from local farmers also keeps money closer to home. When produce travels through fewer hands, more money stays in the community in the hands of those who actually grew it. And, because of course you knew it was coming, it also requires significantly less packaging, refrigeration, and transportation to reach our plates, which cuts down on emissions and fossil fuel use. We can all cut down on our food miles by seeking out and frequenting our local farmers markets, or by ordering from local community-supported agriculture, or CSAs. When we lived in Irvine, we got our fruit and veggies from a CSA, Farm Fresh to You. To find it, I just Googled CSAs near me. We ordered a box of mixed organic produce, all seasonal, grown on a local farm and delivered right to our doorstep every 2 weeks. Kind of felt like Christmas each time I opened my door in the morning to find the most beautiful box of fresh local produce.
Ho, ho, ho.
Eating what I buy, or buying only what I'll eat. Roughly 1/3 of the world's food is never eaten. You heard that right. 1/3 of the food raised or prepared does not make it from farm or factory to our forks. And that's pretty weird since more than 800 million people worldwide suffer from hunger, while almost 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions are due to food waste. Remember Drawdown, the book and project that ranked the top climate solutions? Eating less meat was number 4, but you want to know what came before it? Reducing food waste. It was number 3. In places around the world with lower incomes and weaker infrastructure, food loss is typically unintended and structural in nature. Bad roads, heat and humidity and lack of refrigeration or storage facilities, that sort of thing. Waste happens early in the supply chain, rotting on farms or spoiling during storage or distribution. You can see that in the blue, green, and yellow on this chart. In places across the world with higher incomes, like the United States, more of our food waste happens farther along the supply chain. That's the red on this chart. We buy more food than we can really cook in a week, so we toss it. We don't want the produce that looks a little bumpy or discolored, or we forget about our leftover lasagna in the back of the fridge until it's rotten. When we reduce our food waste, we reduce the need for the land and resources used to produce it, and the methane gas that's released when our food waste is sent to the landfill. I've been working on a few things to limit more of my own food waste. I've found that planning ahead and avoiding grocery runs when I'm hungry has helped me act less like the starving savage that I can sometimes be. A growling stomach and no list is a sure recipe for a cart full of a bunch of stuff that is likely to get wasted when my hunger subsides and my good sense returns. I also buy the ugly produce when I can. There's even a delivery service for perfectly good quality but ugly produce. You don't need to order the box though. Just give that misshapen carrot a little love next time you're in the grocery store. Savi has a sixth sense for small soft spots anywhere on a banana, and once she's discovered one, the whole thing is ruined. But you know what? She loves it in a smoothie. You can blend or bake or boil your slightly wilting, browning, or imperfectly shaped herbs and produce, or really any produce you have lying around and aren't quite sure what to do with, to make smoothies, ice cubes, and a number of other things.
All due respect, because y'all be coming to me with some crazy shit. How in the fuck are you telling me you don't eat leftovers?
I may not have put it quite like that, but the man does have a point. I try to eat my leftovers and the foods in my fridge and pantry. There are actually websites like Supercook and My Fridge Food where you can type in the ingredients in your fridge and pantry and they'll give you recipe ideas. I've also found that storing my food better is a simple method for cutting waste. This one isn't super sexy, but it works. Storing greens with a thin towel in a sealed container to draw out the moisture, keeping the onions and potatoes apart, storing herbs like flowers. That one was a game changer, y'all. Finally, composting. It's better not to waste food rather than to compost the food you do waste. But when you've done what you can and you still have some scraps and leftovers, composting is a good option. I have a vision of myself as a serious composting lady with a glorious backyard garden of fresh produce, grown from my own nutrient-rich compost and used to lovingly nourish my family. But I'm not that lady. I've only recently taken my first baby steps toward composting with my small Lomi kitchen top composter. My sweet husband bought it for me because he knows my vision. He said he thought the Lomi best matched my decor and I'd prefer it over the big ugly black ones that the real composting ladies use. Bless him. Composting is a whole other topic, so I'll just leave it here and say I'm okay to be the composter that matches my decor lady for now. Hey, you gotta start somewhere. Phew. So all of this talk of food has made me hungry. The good news is that by making just a few simple tweaks to our daily meals and food shopping habits, we can all help the planet and our waistlines, improve our health, and save a few dollars along the way. Bon appetit, let's eat.